job or served anybody else but themselves, and not trying to be ugly, but we're going to look at some things that you find about these people. They're very hard to convert. I'm not trying to make you be discouraged or anything, but these are the people mostly we're dealing with now, this mindset, postmodernism. They don't like authority. The military's been down in their recruiting. Some of it was political nonsense going on, but some of it is kids coming from families they don't want to be told no. I told my wife yesterday, we was talking about someone that goes to the church where my son is, and this girl's boyfriend is going into the Army. He's going to boot camp. And from the looks of him that I've seen in the past, it's exactly what he needs. He'll come out of there, he'll be a grown man when he comes home to her, willing, I suspect, to be able to work and provide for a family, look you in the eye and be respectful. I hope. I think Israel's got it right. Every person that graduates high school has 2 years, female or male. You've got to do 2 years. Training with a rifle, training with whatever. And so even if it was something where they taught them how to dig a ditch, do something for the state, build a road or whatever, I think that would be important. But here's where it's hard for us, and I tell you what, it gives us Christians, I can tell you, it can discourage you. We about give up on evangelism, and I know why. Because it seems like every door you knock, I don't knock doors anymore. It's pretty, you don't get as much from it. But this group of people, they don't want to belong to a church because there's rules, and they don't like them. Let's go through these, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Number one is, one of you stop for a second. Now, this don't just apply to them. This applies to a lot of people, but they are very uninformed about the Bible. They were raised in a home for the most part, maybe a father not there, so not any hard set rules, not much spirituality. Probably everybody in here, when you were a kid, you went to church with somebody, grandma, your mother, maybe your whole family if you were fortunate. My dad's still Calvary Baptist, and I was raised in a split household. My mother and my grandmother were members of the church. So, they're very uninformed about the Bible. And number two, they do have spirituality. It's just hard to tap into it. They don't really know what it is, but they do know that when you start reading words like commandment, John 14:15, if you love me, Jesus said, keep my commandments. John 15:14 says, you're truly my friend if you keep my commandments. That keeping commandments is kind of a catchphrase you'll hear amongst people, especially these. They'll say, I'm not into commandment keeping. Well, if you're going to be a Christian, you have to. Jesus is the author of our salvation. I believe that's about Hebrews 5:9 in that area. But they're spiritual. They want spirituality, but they try to fit it in their little box, and that's hard to do. Anti-institutional, they're against institution. They want spirituality without organization. Think about that. That's hard to do. It's like buffet religion. We get that word at times. They want religion, and they want to pick out the pieces they like. It's hard to talk to somebody like that about spirituality. You ever heard us called in the community a cult? They love that word. Y'all them Bible thumpers that think everything has to be exactly like this book. Well, what book else is there? I don't know. God gave us a manual, so they don't see the church as being relevant. Sadly, there's members of the Lord's church that don't see that. They show up and sit on a pew, warm themselves by the spiritual fire, so to speak. They get their fill of it and they go home. But they're not really part of the family, the church here. They look at it more as a building. And you and I know it's not the building, it's the people. The Lord died for the church, not this mortar and brick. These folks don't want to understand that concept. It sounds like too much hindrance on them. They don't believe the church meets their spiritual needs. They don't understand that, but what it means is their needs, they think, are, I want a watered down version of the gospel, and if you guys aren't going to provide that, I'll move on. Sadly, that's where we part ways with some of these folks. We don't want to, but until they get to reading the Word, they get to understanding that it's not about them, it's hard to reach them. And then it gets us discouraged. I've been there. When I worked at Clarendon, I was there 15 and a half years. We probably had 20 to 30 baptisms during that 15 and a half period. But it's very church community. But you get closer to a big city, you're going to have more and more of these type of folks here. And you can get to the point where you blame yourselves. People guilt trip us. Some of our brethren will say, well, the reason y'all aren't growing, y'all aren't trying. They don't know a thing about what you're doing or I'm doing. But they're assuming by looking at lack of results. But you know, sowing the seed, you and I may never see the crop from this area. It may all of a sudden years later sprout in places. You just never know. A lot of preachers are run off. We just hadn't really had any growth since you've been here. And I'm going to tell you, if you ever read the book of Judges, how horrible times were, we're pretty close to that. I mean, we see riots, people getting hurt for really no reason whatsoever, babies being slaughtered left and right. We live in a weird world right now, very ungodly. Satan must wake up every morning feeling good that he's got such a grip on this world. And this country, which used to be a beacon to the world about following the Lord, or at least in some form, now preacher wants to keep his job, he'll find out what everybody's wanting and preach that because he was more interested in the money in the first place. C, rather spend time privately with God. I don't know how many people you'll hear talking about how they have church at home. I asked one fellow when he said that, because he used to be a member of the church, I said, have y'all tried to even select an elder yet? He said, well, I'm the only man there. I said, then, that's kind of hard to gather with the saints. Now, I know back then they didn't have something like this, but they met together, sometimes house to house. Skeptical of anyone who has an absolute truth. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. You know, don't tell me that this is a certain thing is the only way it can be. And that makes our next point. Because they're pluralists. They're the people that want to say, you're okay, I'm okay. Everybody in this room has a different view, and we can all agree that we're all okay. And that don't even make sense, does it? If we went to the car lot of your favorite automaker, and we all went, and Danny said, here's a blue Ford.
Yeah, way to go forward.
And if I was to say, well, I thought it was red. And maybe she said, no, it's a Toyota. And we all disagreed, but at the end of the day, we said, we're all right. You're right, and he's right, and I'm right. Well, you wouldn't say that, would you? You wouldn't call the police and say, I have a red Chevrolet pickup that got stole. And they found a green Dodge, and they said, we found it. Well, that's not mine. It's close enough, isn't it? You know, that's the way we do that. Thankfully, our pharmacists don't do that. Take them a pill for your high blood pressure, and they give you salt tablets and birth control. You wouldn't stand for that. You'd say, wait a minute, that ain't right. Even if I go to Sonic, I know it's not a very expensive but if they get my order wrong, and they got onions on it and I don't want them, you know, I'm going to tell them, hey, I don't want that.
I went to Braun's last week, we got pancakes, I don't order hardly ever. Got pancakes with bacon. And just before I could say my name, which is EC, here she came with my order. Thank you very much, dear, and I went home. Guess what? They had the bacon. I didn't.
Right. It's very irritating. But I heard at one point there was 30,000 denominations in this country. But let's say conservatively it's 10,000 groups today. They would tell you they're all okay. We're going to the same place. If I was going to Abilene today and I said, well, I'm going to go through Chicago first. That's, you know, it doesn't make sense. They wouldn't apply this logic to anything else in their world. So I guess one thing I'm saying is don't get too discouraged and depressed because we're having a hard time with these folks. From what I saw yesterday, about as good a way as you're ever going to meet people is find a need, try to satisfy it, and then meet them and talk with them as you do it. And sometimes your love being shown, and that's what you see in the Bible.
But as far as yourself, listen to the words the Lord tells Samuel. They're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me.
Right. That's exactly right. 1 Samuel 3 or 6. I'm sorry, I wouldn't. But anyway, I had a member of the church years ago, a very young fellow. He was a top pilot. We were near the Meridian Naval Air Base. He had graduated the Top Gun deal. Your last test is landing on an aircraft carrier at night. And I can remember him serving the Lord's Supper. He got so nervous that he almost couldn't go on. I asked him later, I said, what are you doing? I said, that makes you nervous and you flew a jet and landed on an aircraft carrier at night? He said, man, this is the Lord's stuff. And I thought, boy, this guy's getting it. He's serious. And then the next Sunday, conversation was started about other churches. He said, I don't understand why we can't look at each other as we're in the military. They're on our left flank and this one's over here. And I said, because we're not all in the Lord's army. Matthew 7:21, y'all remember that verse? Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter heaven, but he who what? Does the will. Underline does. It's not, but he who does whatever they want to and I'll accept it. God's never accepted that. Ask the two young fellows from Leviticus chapter 10 where they had a profane fire offered and it wasn't what God wanted and he struck them dead. Today, a lot of these people would say, well, that's not much of a God I want to serve. They don't understand who God is. They don't understand who they are. It's the pot asking the pot maker, what's your credentials here? Preach tolerance. Let me tell you what, it pays better. I've seen the ads. I've been offered them. If you'll preach anything to make everybody happy, them type churches will fill your pockets. I had a couple of calls about a church, and one called me. He's right down the line. He said, another fellow's going to call. He's on the committee. He was so far off on a subject and trying to convince me. I said, sir, let's don't waste each other's time. I'm never going to understand it the way you are, and you're never going to come around to what I'm saying. I said, there ain't no use making each other miserable. And so I didn't get another call, but that's good. A shut door is at least a door I can check off. I don't have to go back through it. Any comments right now about postmodernism? I don't have to ask, but I will. Do y'all run into these type of people a lot? Let me tell you, the young...
On TV, especially the ones that don't agree with them, they're not real talk.
Young people especially. My wife in a hospital she used to work at started having classes for the older nurses so they know how to work with the younger ones. Never tell them no, don't use a strong voice. Instead of teaching them what's right, and if you don't like it, get up out of here. No, we need some warm bodies here, so y'all gonna have to basically baby them. I'm gonna ask you to sacrifice because of these kids that's never been told no in their life. Could you imagine when we were younger? You imagine, sir, when you was 15 or 20, somebody said that to your father or family and said, you're going to have to treat him a lot different than these other folks. Be nicer to him. And oh my goodness. I'm all for being nice, but everybody has to learn the same problems of life, same things in life.
I had a spiritual conversation with a friend at work, and she said, well, the Bible's so outdated.
Yeah, the Bible's so outdated. She had a study or talk with somebody at work. That's what they say about the Constitution, don't they? It's the same people. It's a living document. You know, this Bible changes every day while you're sleeping. That's what they'd have you believe. And it's silliness. And what kind of God is that? He's changing what it really means while me and you don't know about it. That's not very fair, is it? We don't serve that type of God, brethren. We do not serve that type of God.
They don't have respect for our country either.
Exactly.
They don't have respect for anything. That's the real truth.
The movie, one of my favorite sports movies is Rudy. He cannot understand why he cannot make it to Notre Dame campus. Went into the auditorium with one of the priests. He said, Father, I've been praying so much, so hard, and I don't understand why God's not helping me or whatever. He said, I know two things about God. He said, He's God and I'm not. And as long as you can understand that, you get it. We are very valuable to God. He sent His Son to die for us. But on the other hand, He's the rule maker. And there's no use wanting to be spiritual if you're not going to bow down to the Creator.
You can be spiritual, but there's a whole lot more spirits out there than just God's spirit.
They want buffet, right?
Exactly.
Buffet.
They want to pick at you.
But now, number 5. Now here's where you got to be careful. This is where our arguments fall on deaf ears when they see us not living it. They're pragmatists. They want to see it. You said that this life is the best, and living by all those rules are the best, and then they see you not living it, you're done. Everybody in that circle of influence with that person, oh, that's that guy that preaches that, but he don't even live it. We've got to live it. As an old preacher told me, he said, we're other people's spiritual clock. And ever so often they look at you to get their time. Just like when people would ask you, what time is it? What time is it? What time is it? I used to be the worst. I didn't like wearing a watch. I wear people out. Why don't you buy a watch? Well, people will look at you and say, he's got his stuff together. And so they start looking at their lives through, say, our brother here, his eyes, and they're like, man, maybe I need to reach out to him and ask him. You'll be surprised, just righteous living will get questions from people. They want to know what you're doing.
Continually it will. Especially if you sing everywhere you go. That's been my deal. People will ask you, how can you help?
We had an old lady that lived across from us when I was serving as a deacon in the church. This is before we ever got into ministry. She and I did never miss church. Well, she had, I guess it was when you had surgery, and I had pneumonia. And we were at the house. I mean, it was bad. And she called over there and she said, what's wrong? Well, how do you know something's wrong? She said, your cars are still out there in the front of the house. That's the pragmatism of it. People that they want to believe what you're saying, but it's the first time you start not doing it, they're done with you. If you ever take your car to a mechanic and he can't fix it, guess what? You're never going back, most likely. Very few of them going to get a second chance. 5A, they're worried about the here and now, not too much about the future. And that's not just them, that's a lot of people. A lot of reason that people fall away from the church who were faithful members, and then the thorns of life came, and they got so involved in different things, maybe not bad stuff, but they let all that take over. I know a few farmers from a congregation I used to preach at, and I used to talk to them all the time. One fella, for years, has said he had too much land to farm, and then he went and leased another 3,000 acres. I said, what are you doing? Well, my son's wanting to start farming too, and I said, so you're going to be out there with him? Yeah, I got to teach him. I got to set an example. I said, what about the one at church? You know, at the end of the day, you're going to drop dead like all of us, and the farm's out there to whoever's left. You know, what good's that going to be for you? And so, this class I took, I went to my son's class up in Denver, and they let me sit in, and this older fellow was teaching this, and here's one for us, preachers and congregations. We should preach about present problems and not just heaven to give them some solutions. They're looking for solutions. Now, they may not believe what you tell them, but if they see you living your life as what you're saying, they'll come closer to trying your solution. Because there's problems out there today. Folks want to know, should I let my kids go to school in a public school, or maybe I ought to homeschool? Or they want to talk about this stuff, the pros and the cons, and spiritually speaking, how can it affect that? Now, I'm not pro one, pro the other. I'm just brought that up. There's a lot of things today they want to discuss. Should I even be involved with this club? Because they're involved in some stuff that, you know, we need to be talking about that. I had to quit the Lions Club where I had been because that one group, I was told, was one of the most ungodly groups of people they had ever been around. I'm not saying all Lions groups are Lion Club. This one, they wouldn't let you, they'd ask you to lead a prayer, but you couldn't talk about anything. Money handling. You know, that's a good subject for people today, because that is a very, some fellow used to have a rhyme. He'd say the collection is a reflection of the direction of your life. You can look at your checkbook and it'll tell you a book about yourself. Your register, when you write down stuff that you spent your money on, look at it at the end of the month and see how much of that was just you, or is there any spirituality to it? I know it's a toe stomper, but me and Vicki had to work on our lives for years till we got to, I would say, maybe I'm not satisfied, but I feel much better about our giving life. Because for years we offered only leftovers. And let me tell you something. The work of God can't really move. It teaches others what they shouldn't do. You can take a person that don't know much and you let them start counting the money, and they start seeing they shouldn't be concentrating on it. They can't help it. Money is a big deal. The Lord talks about it very much in the New Testament. Now, they don't want the church, if you look down at 6, they're relational, but they don't want the church. They do want the relationships. That's why when you do get one to visit, or you do get one to start coming, you got to put your arms around them and love them up. You got to make them feel like, man, we don't want to function without you here. We love you and want to make you our friend. But when they come in a place that, and I've been to them, sadly I've preached at one, cold, indifferent, they say they want to grow, but they look at others as outsiders and they're never really going to accept them. You're not going to be in any position of service. What does that tell them? They don't really believe what they're saying. They need love in their life. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not some wide-eyed liberal. But the older I get, this whole thing lives on love. The gospel, what God did. You're willing to serve. If you don't have enough love in your life, you're not willing to serve it. They like small group functions. They like experiences, number 7. You know, if you had a banquet or you had a cookout, they would love that stuff. And that might be how you get them here. I love this clothes thing that's being done here because it's a point of contact. You might start a relationship with people. They had a need. You didn't try to jam something down their throat, but you filled a need, and you make mention, hey, we'd love to have you sometime. Or would you like us to study with you? Can I run you home? Do you need a ride? Do you need... You know, they like those things, and that's how you draw them in. I'm not trying to trick somebody. Don't think we're trying to like sneak up on the roadrunner here. We want to really appeal to them, but not give in to changing of the doctrine. They want an experience with God, and they'll trust theirs. They may not trust yours, but they'll see something change in a congregation, say a family who had been going through trials and troubles, and they see them get picked up. The brethren pick them up and help take care of them. That touches them. That's an experience for them, and they'll savor and treasure that more than you telling them about yours. 2 Thessalonians 1, verses 6 through 9. You remember what that Paul's talking about there? There's a day coming with Jesus and his angels and a flaming sword of vengeance that will come upon those who do not know God and those who do not what? Obey God. Either one. It's the same thing. If you won't obey him, you might as well not know him. And if you don't know him, you can't be obedient to him. You can't live right. And sadly, there's going to come a day when Jesus says, I never knew you. You imagine a child come up to you now at my age, I'm 59, and they say, you're my father. I don't know who you are. I know you're not mine. Well, you're a father and I'm a child. Yeah, but you're not mine. That's God. See, we're all physical children of God. But we're not all spiritual children of God. And I know that makes some people mad, but if it's not so, that means we're all saved or all doomed. Why did Jesus come? Why did he die for us if everybody's going to be let in? You know, if you opened up a park and said it's going to cost $5 a head, you'll get a hot dog and some chips and a drink, and people just come piling through there, and they got their hands out. Well, you didn't comply with... We see it with the border, don't we? And if that's a sore subject for you, forgive me. I don't mean to. But I'm saying it's so anti the rest of America. We'll just show up illegally, take your stuff, and gripe about it. Gripe in the way it's given to us. Gripe about the amount given to us. No. God is the reason there's law and order in countries. You read Romans 12 and other places. The whole court system's based on the Bible. Now, they've perverted it, but at one point, and what I just talked about, the experience, that is biblical. That's not just nonsense to draw them in. They want an experience, and we need to, as best we can, as long as we don't pervert the gospel, we need to try to make it memorable, show them as much love as possible. And they say, man, they're not like those other folks. There's a denomination, I won't call them out, probably the biggest or one of the biggest in the world. Fellow found out he had liver cancer and went to see his priest. Never went to talk to him in private, had to get an appointment. Got an appointment to see him. And when the priest found out there wasn't going to be no money handed over to the church, he basically told him, we're all going to die, and sent him on his way. Didn't even tell you be warmed and filled or anything. Now, those are easy to convert. He was very dissatisfied, depressed. And, of course, he was, you were talking about this morning, he was basically told or they pushed that you shouldn't study. Leave that to the clergy. The laity don't need to be reading. You wouldn't understand it if you read it. So got him studying the Bible. He knew he didn't have but a few months to live. He devoured the Bible. I couldn't keep him enough studies to go. He said, why did they keep us away from this stuff? I said, because you'll find out they're fraudulent, what they've been teaching you. You can pray your relative out of hell if you bring them enough money. Father, my uncle was not a good man, and I'm sure he's in purgatory. Well, you say about 100 Hail Marys and $3,000 gift to the church. I believe we can take care of that. It's silliness. They built their cathedral or whatever on indulgences, selling people. On Friday night, I want to get drunk. I tell the priest, I want to get drunk and go see a woman that's not my wife. I need 2 indulgences for so much money. They'd let you buy them. So your sin was already forgiven before you even committed it. The people want the truth. And that's what we have to be as truth tellers. Nobody that backs up from the truth. Don't be scared that somebody's going to give you an ugly look. You know, I've had people curse me out on Bible studies, go see them, and they didn't want to hear it. And
Don't be afraid to let them go.
but I tell folks, the worst thing they can say is no. They can curse you out, but they killed Jesus over it. So far, we're not in much danger of that happening here. I don't know how much time, but I figure we're getting close. Y'all stop 15 after? Oh. Sometimes. Okay, well, I'm through with my material. Now, if y'all want something else, we can do something, but if y'all can promise to be quiet and don't be running down the halls, we're excused. The teacher ever tell you that? I'm going to let you go, but if I find out y'all running the halls, we ain't going to do this no more. You're going to have to sit here. Busy work. Thank y'all very much for your comments. It makes it so much easier to do a class. Nobody wants to lecture up here. I'm not smart enough to do that. I need as much help as I can get. Probably found out more about postmodernism than you ever wanted to know.